Hi, boys and girls. I'm here to read Daniel's story to you. I'm sorry that we can't read it in class because that's one of my favorite stories, but hopefully, you'll all be able to listen and interact and read along as I'm reading. Obviously, we've also been building some background with some research and reading articles and things about the Holocaust. This is Daniel's story by Carol Matas. This is historical fiction, meaning that it is based on true events, but the characters and the story about what the characters are going through is not real. It's made up. It's probably based on a lot of things that a lot of people went through back in the Holocaust, but Daniel is not a real person. Okay, so the contents, if you notice, are separated into parts, and the parts are titled Pictures of Frankfurt, Lodz, Auschwitz, and Buchenwald. So those are cities in Germany and Poland. And that's where Daniel's family travels over the course of several years throughout the Holocaust. And each section will give you a map. At the bottom, there is a key. This is what Europe looked like in 1938 to 1939. Concentration camps are marked with little squares, and Daniel's journey from concentration camp to city and back and forth is indicated with a dotted line. So he's going to start in Pictures of Frankfurt, which is in Germany. Okay, so that's where his journey begins in this story.
Can I start your lap?
Mommy's going to read to her class right now. Say hi.
Hi.
Tell them your name. What's your name? That's not your name. Your name is Lincoln, right? Okay, can you sit right on the floor next to Mommy or on your stool and you can listen?
I can sit on your lap.
Okay, but you can't touch anything and you can't make noise. Understand?
Yep.
You have to be a good student, all right? Can you do that?
No, I must.
Yes, you are.
Uh-oh.
Part 1, Pictures of Frankfurt. Chapter 1. Follow along with your book. Okay, I'm going to ask that you sit down here so I can read, okay? Thank you. What happens to me? What has happened to me? I feel just like I did when I was around 10 years old and I got hit by a soccer ball right between the eyes, and I wandered around the field disoriented, not knowing who I was, where I should be going. I feel like that now, stunned and confused. Who am I? Where am I going? This much I know. My name is Daniel. I am 14 and I am Jewish. I am on a train with my mother, father, sister, and what looks like over 1,000 other Jews from Frankfurt. We do not have any idea where we are going, only that the Germans no longer want Jews in the country. In Germany, my country. Generations of our family have lived here going back 1,000 years, but it looks as if we will be the last. Father and mother sit across from me and speak in low voices to each other. My sister Erica, who at 12 is 2 years younger than I, sits beside me. Please don't touch that. Humming a tune to herself, no doubt composing a song for her violin. I bend over and pull my photo album out of my rucksack. I feel the need to look at my pictures of my life. Perhaps they can help me understand how I came to be on this train, who I am, and what has happened. I open the album to the first page. The first picture in my album is that of me on my 6th birthday. Marked on the bottom is March 30th, 1933. I am smiling at the camera, all pudgy cheeks and thick black wavy hair, my brand new gleaming toy train on display in front of me. Uncle Peter, my favorite uncle, would have taken this picture. He was the unofficial family photographer. The picture just beneath it is one he took later that day of our whole family. Everyone looks serious because they don't want to appear silly in the photograph. Still, I remember that day. The adults talking and laughing. The hustle and bustle as dinner was being prepared. The smell of freshly baked bread and roasting chicken, and, of course, the screaming and noise of all my cousins. I look at each face in the photograph in turn. Uncle Peter isn't in the picture because he was taking it. He was married to Auntie Leah, my mother's older sister, a nurse. She always bossed us around and tried to organize our lives. Uncle Peter and Auntie Leah had 4 children under the age of 5. Friedrich, a year younger than I, Mia, age 4, Gertrude, age 2, and Brigitte, age 1. The children looked so quiet and well-behaved in the photo, but in reality they would run, scream, fight, and drive me crazy. I remember the first thing they went for when they got into the door that day was a magnificent castle I had made from my building set. I had labored over it for weeks, methodically snapping the pieces together until I thought it was perfect. It was demolished only seconds after their arrival. Daniel, my mother always said to me just before they came over, you are the oldest. Here.
Thank you.
Go take it on the couch. You must hold your temper even if they do things you don't like. When I was 5, I bopped Friedrich on the arm hard for breaking one of my toys. He'd cried. And ever since then, all I heard was, you're the oldest. I looked at the shambles of my castle and felt like bopping them all. Lincoln, can you bring that here for a second? Lincoln, bring that here so I can turn it down. He'd cried, and ever since then, all I'd heard was, you are the oldest. I looked at all the shambles in my castle and felt like bopping them all. Strange, really, that they should be so wild, considering how strict Auntie Leah is. Perhaps she is better at controlling other people's children than her own. Also in the picture is my mother's younger brother, David. He was an engineer and a bachelor, and we usually saw him at dinner time when he just happened to drop by to visit. He was an engineer and a bachelor, and we usually saw him at dinner time when he just happened to drop by to visit. Standing beside my father are his 3 brothers, Leo, who came in from Berlin with his family, Walter and Aaron and their wives. Sitting on the floor are their children, 3 per family, most around my age or younger. I remember that as the photo was being taken, Uncle Walter and Father were fighting, talking back and forth with clenched teeth so as not to ruin that picture. Palestine is the answer, Joseph, said Uncle Walter to my father. We should all emigrate there. Emigrate means to leave one's country and go settle in another. And do they need concert violinists in the Holy Land? Father had replied. No, Walter, they'll put you to work in the fields. Even a new country needs music, Walter retorted, and the Jews need a country of their own. We have a country, Father exclaimed. Our family has lived in Germany for over 600 years. How long does it have to be before you call someplace home? And my family, said Mother, and then the entire family joined in, has been here for almost 1,000 years. Mother turned red. Well, we have. We know, everyone laughed. Auntie Leah spoke up. It never hurts to be reminded. Everyone laughed again. The picture had to be delayed while the adults put their serious faces back on. Oma Rachel and Opa Samuel, my mother's parents, are in the picture too, as is Oma Miriam, my father's mother. Oma Miriam lived in an old folks' home in Frankfurt, but was with us for my birthday. Opa Carl had died 2 years earlier. Right after the picture was finally taken, I remember Auntie Leah began to lecture me. Now, young man, I hope you'll work to deserve such a fine present. I understand your mother has just returned from another trip to see your teacher. It seems to me that she's called to your school at least once a week. She looks at me sternly, and I was so mad I could have kicked her. She was always butting in, and it was so unfair. All I did in school was crack a few jokes and make some funny faces. My classmates thought I was funny, and so did I. Why did my teacher, Mr. Schneider, have to be so sour? He always looked like he'd sucked on a lemon just before coming into the classroom. Leah, it's his birthday, Mother protested. I know, Auntie Leah replied, but you're too soft on him. He should realize how hard these meetings are on you. If Mr. Schneider wasn't so mean and stupid, I'd behave better, I declared defiantly. Auntie Leah looked like she wanted to run over and cover her children's ears. They were all listening with great interest. You must show respect for your teachers, Daniel, she scolded. Why? They don't show respect for me, I shot back. At that point, Uncle Peter intervened. Who wants birthday candies? He asked with a smile. I loved Uncle Peter. I wish you were my teacher, Uncle Peter, I said, giving him a kiss as he handed me a huge piece of chocolate toffee. I'd never be bad in your class. No, Daniel, I'm sure you wouldn't. I agree with you. Mutual respect is very important. Then he whispered in my ear, but just to make things easier for your poor mother, maybe you could pretend a little respect. I giggled and he gave me a wink. That made me feel so grown up that I decided to try it. Not that I could always control myself, but after that, my mother visited Mr. Schneider every month or so instead of every week. I stare at the next page and the next picture. Uncle Peter took this one 2 days after my birthday. It shows my father's hardware store. My father had a very successful business. People came to his store from all over, not so much for his merchandise, but for his advice. He knew how to fix anything and always took the time to show the people who came in what the best tools would be for a specific job. There was also a large section of household items like pots, pans, and knives, and he would discuss the advantages of one over another with his customers and seriously, as if they were deciding the fate of the world. That's why his customers would never consider shopping anywhere else, even if the price was a little cheaper. My mother worked in the back of the shop doing all the accounting. I stare at the picture. Across the front window, written in large letters, is the word Jew. I still remember when I first saw it. I was confused. Jew, what was wrong with that? I went to a regular public school and most of my friends at school weren't Jewish, but that didn't matter. It was just a different religion. We lit candles on the Sabbath and went to synagogue, a Reform synagogue where the service was mostly in German, and celebrated Jewish holidays. They celebrated Christian holidays. So what? But that day there wasn't only writing on the window, there was a stormtrooper. Father said he was called a brown shirt because of the brown shirt of his uniform, and he was standing outside the door of the shop with a gun. I had run there to help in the store, and then I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I thought that maybe the stormtrooper would shoot me if I got close. He looked so mean. And then Mrs. Werner came around the corner. She walked very slowly because she had to use a cane. She walked up to the man and said, "Excuse me, please." The brown shirt looked at her and replied, "All the Jewish shops are being boycotted. You can't go in there." Mrs. Werner tapped his boot with her cane. "Now you listen to me, young man. I walked a long way to get here. I'm 90 years old. Don't you tell me what I can and can't do." And the brown shirt stepped aside. I ran up to her and took her hand, and we went in together. "Daniel," my father cried, "Mrs. Werner, you shouldn't have come. He might have hurt you." "Nonsense," she replied, and then went about her business. All she had needed was a light bulb. I think back to that incident now, and I wonder if the madness could have been stopped then. What if father's regular customers had insisted, like Mrs. Werner, on being allowed in? Mrs. Werner wasn't Jewish, and she didn't care that we were. But how many people had the courage to walk up to a young man holding a gun? What if he should shoot? The next day, the brown shirt was gone, and Uncle Peter came to the store to take the picture. As we stood in the street gazing at the shop, I asked him to explain what was happening. "Have you heard of a man called Adolf Hitler?" Uncle Peter said. "Of course," I replied, insulted. "Who is he?" "He is the Chancellor of Germany," I replied. "Yes, Daniel, you mean Chancellor, appointed by President Hindenburg. His party, the National Socialist Party, they are called Nazis, has lots of seats in Parliament. Hitler has changed the Constitution so that he now rules us. He can do anything he wants, Daniel, and the German people are happy to let him. They think he can solve all their problems of unemployment and that he can stop the fighting." I nodded knowingly. I'd seen people fighting in the streets, but why won't they let people shop in our store? I asked. "That's a good question, Daniel. Hitler wants someone to blame all of Germany's troubles on, and he's decided it will be the Jews. And anyone else that isn't a pure German of the Aryan or master race, I've heard they've opened up camps. They call them concentration camps, where they're putting all his enemies, communists, socialists, gypsies, Jews, anyone who disagrees with him and anyone who he doesn't like. And they're making sure everyone has heard of these camps so people do not protest for fear of getting arrested too." But I said, "How can everyone love him so much if he's so mean?" I thought of the huge rallies father had told me about where tens of thousands cheered Hitler and of the torchlight parades I'd seen many nights in which his followers would march through town singing. I often felt like running out and joining the parades. They always look so exciting. People think he will make Germany strong again, give back its dignity. Come, let's go help your father wash that sign off. The boycott of Jewish stores lasted only 3 days, and like any 6-year-old, I quickly forgot all about it and went back to my happy life. My mother and father must have started to worry them, but they hid it well, and I had other things to worry about, such as whether or not I would make the school soccer team and if I could convince Father to buy me the beautiful model car that was displayed in the shop window next to his. And that is the end of chapter 1. So we're going to post some questions on here that you guys should answer. I'll read the questions to you. So we just want to know, how old was Daniel at the beginning of this chapter? You can find that on the first page. What are Daniel and his family doing, and what city are they leaving from at the beginning of this chapter? So at the very beginning. What disagreement did Uncle Walter and Daniel's father have at Daniel's 6th birthday party? Why was the brown shirt standing outside of the hardware store? What was that purpose? And how did Adolf Hitler come to power in Germany? So I'm going to try to post these videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you can respond with questions. And I would probably suggest writing down some of your answers. That way, when you go to make your video, you have all of your thoughts clear and you can keep it pretty quick and simple. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope you're all doing well, and we will talk more about Daniel's story on Thursday. Have a great day.